Welcome to the Power 365 Show. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/296. Before we chat with today's guest, here's a quick message from our sponsors. If you're feeling stuck in your current career role, is it time to look at your career future and options? I am looking to take a few more clients on that want career coaching. So if you're interested, express your interest at nz365guy.com/coaching. Now, let's get on with the show. Today's guest is from Sussex, Wisconsin in the United States. He's the principal technical architect at Microsoft. He hates winter as he can't golf very much and because the snow is too cold. You can find him on Twitter at John Wiese. Welcome to the show, John Wiese.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Great. Was I correct about the winter and the golfing?
Yeah, for sure. It's a little hard to go out there and hit a white ball around in the snow.
I'd say it'd disappear quite quickly, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It would make it hard to complete the holes.
Yeah. So you're an avid golfer?
Yeah, I try and get out as much as I can, and lately even on the miniature golf or the putt courses, depending on what part of the world you're in, my boys have really gotten into that. So we've been doing a bunch of that lately. Nice.
So I often ask, what do you get up to when you're not working? Is it golf or what else?
Yeah, I've often been told by my wife that I have way too many hobbies. So yeah, when I'm not working, what am I doing? I'm golfing. I do some woodworking. I've built some furniture for my kids' bedrooms. I've built a lot of small stuff. I do pens and things like that. These days I do pens and that sort of stuff because that's something you can do relatively quick. And then I do a lot of stuff with my kids. So I do coaching. I coach baseball and volleyball and do a bunch of that sort of thing. And then just get out and ride bikes and get out in nature as much as we can.
I love it. So I take it you have a workshop for your woodworking side of things?
I do, yeah. Luckily, when we moved into the house that we're in now, we had a relatively large basement that I was able to carve out a fairly good piece of for me to have my shop in. Yeah.
Nice. And a lathe?
I do. I have a full lathe, full table saw, drill press, and all the odds and ends there. So yep, pretty much everything I need I've got.
Very cool. I'm just in the process of setting mine up, so hence my interest. Yeah, excellent. And so Sussex, Wisconsin, I didn't even know there was a Sussex outside the UK.
Yes. So it's just a little small town. It's really just about 20 miles or so northwest of Milwaukee, which is kind of in the southeastern part of the state, very near Chicago. We're about an hour and a half drive down to Chicago.
Mm-hmm. So how did your career start with Microsoft?
So it was actually kind of an interesting story. So when I finished school, I had been working as a consultant for a little while, and my wife and I were preparing to get married. And one of the things we talked about was, moving someplace warm. Both of us were, interested in getting out of the cold for at least a little while. And as luck would have it, I was on a consulting gig at a local financial institution, and they had just signed one of these brand new, at the time, of course, that was 22 years ago now. It was a brand new Microsoft support agreement for developers, and the system that I've been building for them for, I don't know, at the time I think I'd been there maybe 6 months, 8 months. Was brand new technology at the time, client server development. So we were developing a web server based application, and they didn't listen to us when we told them that, we should build this app and then we should do all this kinds of testing and, that sort of stuff. And so they decided to just start going out into all of their local offices around the country and replace their mainframe computers, their AS400s that they had, with just a connection back to this web server, right? And of course, it had issues, which we weren't able to tests because we never did testing other than my own single machine testing. And so they brought in Microsoft. And when the person worked with me for the weekend, as he walked out the door, he stuck his hand out and I shook it and he said, no, resume. So he left with my resume, and about a month later, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, interviewing for a position with Microsoft on their, at the time, IIS, Internet Information Server, the product.
Wow. I haven't heard of that product for so long.
It still exists. Yeah, you don't hear about it anymore, but it still exists. So I interviewed with that team, and like I said, it was probably less than 2 months from the time I worked with him till I interviewed and had an offer, and decided to move from lovely Sussex, Wisconsin. Well, at the time, I wasn't in Sussex; I was in the Milwaukee area, and moved down there and spent about 6.5 years down there doing. You name it. I started out on the front lines, answering phones and telling people how to fix their IIS related problems, and then quickly moved into more of a technical position. So I moved into what we called our debugging team. So the guys that kind of sat in. If you're familiar with debugging, the tools are WinDBG as the Windows debugger, and CDB is the kernel debugging, and would sit in there looking at memory dumps from the different systems and telling you what was broken, how to fix it, and whether that was our own products or code that you wrote that you were running on your web servers. So I did that. For most of that 6.5 years, that's pretty much what I did. I worked with people doing that and teaching people how to do what we did. Before I moved over to what I've been doing now for the last 15 years is working with partners building applications on our platforms.
Wow. Okay. So nowadays, what type of what group do you sit within Microsoft?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I have been the group that I'm in now is one commercial partner, but I'm specifically the kind of like the group that came from what we used to call developer experience or the developer platform engineering (DPE), developer platform evangelism team. So I was part of that org, and then when we kind of brought all that together and created the kind of a one commercial partner, a group to work solely with partners, whatever type of partners they might be, then we became one commercial partner. Now, specifically within that group, I sit in what we would call our build with team, and then in that team on the business applications team.
Right. So that's the line I wanted to get a connection through to the biz app side of things. Now, before we go into that in a bit more detail, I see, and it might be one of these many hobbies that you have, Surface Duo, Flutter Dev, Dart, these names coming up. So tell me a bit about these interests.
Sure. Yeah. So as I said, I started out in consulting, and my primary, focus was development, and I've always been into writing code. I have a love for sitting and just writing code and seeing what it produces and being able to kind of play with it. And especially nowadays, you get into, you mentioned Flutter is one of my current things. I've been doing Flutter. It's in, I think, version 2 now from Google, and has been around for about 3 to 4 years, kind of in a state that was usable. And I got involved with it early on, partly because I was looking for something new. I had been doing Xamarin, and I like doing that, but I saw this new framework as something that might be interesting. And also because the person over at Google that runs it, Tim Sneath, came from Microsoft, and Tim and I had worked together for quite a while before he went over there. So when I saw that he had gone there and was working on that, I took even more interest in it. And so development is kind of my passion, and I do a lot of apps on the side on my own. Just whether it's I see something that I think would be cool as an app, or I see an app that I don't really think does what it should be doing, and I try and write my own version of it. And that got me to Duo. So you mentioned Duo, and mobile is kind of my key space. I love mobile and application development for mobile. And when we announced Surface Duo and Surface Neo, back, oh gosh, what was that? About almost 2 years, a year and a half, maybe ish.
Is now, yeah.
Yeah. I reached out to some folks internally and said, hey, what are we doing here? What are we going to do for the developers? And ended up getting connected with what we call our developer experience team in the Surface group. Talked with the folks that I know over there and said, hey, if you guys are serious about this, we really and about meeting developers where they're at. I really think one of the key areas moving forward for Google on Android is Flutter. For developers. And after we talked about it a little bit, they agreed and said, hey, this is great. You appear to be like one of the only people, if not the only person in Microsoft that knows anything about Flutter. Would you be interested in helping us out? So that led to me kind of having a few side projects. My boss said, yeah, no, I know that's your passion. Go forward. You've got time. If you've got time, go ahead and do what you can with them. So I did some blog posts and wrote some samples and kind of helped them make sure that Flutter ran on the emulators that we have, and then that we had some support for that.
Incredible. Are you seeing, from and you're obviously not necessarily attached deeply into that team, but are you seeing uptake for the Surface Duo and engagement in market?
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing feedback along the lines that we thought we'd get with the V1 product. We made some trade-offs, which we've talked about in the press, and we knew we were making those trade-offs to get the product out and to really get this V1 of what is the very first version of its kind, two-screen device out there. And so we're about where I think we thought we'd be as far as adoption. I know there's a lot of interest in a V2, if we have a V2 coming and when, and if we'll fix some of those things that we did trade-offs and get them to where people hoped they had been. But yeah, really good feedback, especially recently at the beginning of March, Google held their kind of yearly at this point Flutter conference, and and we were invited. I worked with Tim to get our developer experience guys to be part of the keynote, because we've been working on contributing back to Flutter support for not just Surface Duo, but for foldable devices in general. So any device that is foldable, has multiple screens, or can be folded into multiple screens. And so a lot of good work going on there to continue to drive that support into Flutter to be native, and a lot of great feedback from the community around that. So definitely an interesting space to be in, I think.
Yeah. Interesting that, more and more we're seeing the big tech companies also, engage better, talk better, and, use the right technologies for the solutions, outcomes. So great to see.
Yep. And, I've told a few people, and I can't say this with 100% certainty, but I'm fairly certain that event was probably the very first time Microsoft was part of a Google keynote.
Wow. Yeah. Because, you don't often hear. I mean, I've seen a lot of staff move backwards and forwards between the organizations, but not really anything together, right? So very cool. Tell us about customer insights. It's an area where I've come across your expertise in. And when did you start getting involved in it? What is it? For those listening, they might not be familiar with what it is. Dynamics 365 Customer Insights.
Sure. So I got involved with Dynamics 365 Customer Insights about a year and a half ago. That's around the time that I was brought over to the BizApps team. So my current boss, I had worked for him in the past, and we kept in touch. We were pretty good friends, and he had said, "Hey, I've got a spot, and we're going to be looking at doing something. Would you be interested in coming over?" And I said, sure. So I joined his team, and one of the first things he did is put me into this space for Customer Insights. It was a brand new product. It had just come out just about 2 years ago at this point. It came out, and I said, okay, great. What do I need to do? He said, well, just dive in. So for the past 18 months or so, I have been leading kind of the partner training for all of our partners worldwide on Customer Insights. I've been helping to then get those partners out with solutions in the marketplace, so offering services and helping them with customers as they begin to go and implement installations of Customer Insights for customers. So that primarily the training piece has been kind of worldwide. The kind of working with partners initially is kind of supposed to be in the U.S. only, but as I get pulled into other things, I've been pulled into a lot of things going on worldwide with customers. For those that aren't familiar, Customer Insights is a customer data platform. So it's really a product that's meant to allow you to have a better view of your customers across your organization.
Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned there training of partners. Is that all? Or does that content all go up on Microsoft Learn, or is it more remote in-person training? How is and why I'm asking this? I was just on a call yesterday with a partner up in Canada. And they were asking, I've looked at everything on Microsoft Learn around Customer Insights. What else is there? How do I get better training or more training?
Sure. So initially, it was in a delivery, in-person delivery of content. We started out with a very small group of partners in kind of the early phase, pre-release. And then when I came on, I took the content, I kind of revamped it because it had to be updated to the product that is obviously is a SaaS-based offering. It's going to change quite frequently. So I updated it to the current version at the time. And then we started delivering it to partners in person. We did that for about a year. And then not even a year. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So that kind of changed the whole paradigm for training. And so what we've done since then is we've actually revised it. We've done some things to it, and we recorded it. So as of probably a few months ago, back early in 2021 here, we took the most up-to-date training that we had. We recorded it as we delivered it at the end of 2020, and we put that out for any partner to go look at. So up on our partner site, any partner can get to that. It's aka.ms/CI partner. We'll take you to the partner site for Customer Insights. There's a number of resources there. One of them is a link to the on-demand training. So while it's not quite the same as being in a training class and having the ability to ask questions and get answers, you have the content there. You have the lab manuals and things that you need there, as well as the recording of each of the modules available to you to go through and watch and then do the labs in conjunction with those. So I definitely recommend going and checking that out. We're hoping to revise it. We don't really have a permanent plan yet, but I try and update it at least quarterly because, like I said, the product updates weekly, and while I can't keep up with it that fast, I can try and update it at least quarterly and get updated manuals and PowerPoints and stuff out to the site for people, and then hopefully we can get the recordings updated occasionally. I've kind of put together a plan on how we could do that, and I'm hoping that at some point we can get commitment to go ahead and do that.
Nice. We'll make sure we get that in the show notes so people can find that. Let's expand a bit more on Customer Insights. You're saying it allows organizations to, understand their customers better. Can you go into a bit more detail around how customers are practically using Customer Insights?
Sure. Yeah. So Customer Insights is really about when you have, in most organizations are this way today, right? Yeah, especially very large ones, but even small ones. You have data about customers, and you have that in multiple systems, right? You might have your CRM system. You might have a finance system, F&O, in the dynamic space. You might have a services or a support or other systems that people enter information about customers into. That information about the customer then is in all these different systems. So you don't really have a single view of your customer. Somebody who's answering a support call may not know that the customer bought some new piece of software from you or product or whatever the case might be, because that information is in a different system entirely. So wouldn't it be great to be able to provide better customer service by knowing all these things? When the person calls in, maybe knowing that they just bought a specific product and maybe that's what they're calling about, and being able to have at the ready links to all the manuals and things like that for that product. So if they're asking questions about that, you can quickly get to it rather than waste time. And then business value too, right? So not only helping in the support area or in the sales area or any of that, but as an overall business, being able to then see a unique single view of each customer and be able to do some analysis on that, being able to generate what's the customer lifetime value projected for each customer, what's the what's their average spend in the store versus on the web, or things like that, being able to get all that. Could you do it before? Probably. Could you do it today? Sure. You could build something that can do all that. But what we offer with Customer Insights is a product that helps you do that without you having to maintain it, is continually being updated, as I said, weekly updates of the product and big feature updates at least twice a year. So you're getting a lot of value for that versus building it yourself.
So typically, is it a case of I bring all the data together and ingest it into Customer Insights? How does that bit of the process work? When you talk about siloed data sets within an organization, how do you ultimately collect those together? Even decide, let's say if you're in an organization that had, let's say 50 different applications that had segments of data, how do you decide, what's the most valuable to start with, as to, boiling the ocean?
Yeah. So getting the data in Customer Insights is pretty straightforward, and that's actually one of the I think differentiators of Customer Insights versus some of its competitors is we have a very large number of connectors. Anybody that's played in the dynamic space, particularly in the Power Platform space, is probably well aware of these data connectors that we have. They're basic ways to get data from other systems into Customer Insights in this case. So we have a large number of these that make it very easy to get the data from one system and into Customer Insights. Then once it's in Customer Insights, we have a unification process that we go through. And that unification process is where you can then kind of massage the rules and things that you're putting in that tell the system how you want it to go through and determine when does a record in one data set match a record in a different data set and become a single record of the user. So we go through all of that, and then in the end, what you end up with is this single record for each of your customers. So you have not just 15 views of a customer, but you have one view of the customer, and that can be linked then to the other data that you brought in. So we like to talk about how you bring in demographic or profile type information, but you also bring in transactional information. So the purchases at the website, the purchases in the store, what we refer to in the system as activities, the activities that they're doing. So you bring in those activity data feeds as well, and those link back to the customer. And now you can see things like a timeline, timeline view of all the activities that the customer has made with you. So maybe that's stuff that's coming from your sales system where you can see that they opened the email and marketing systems to show the email was open, that you sent them about the latest marketing advertisement that you sent out in email, or that the salesperson called them and they answered the phone and there was a note put into the system. So those things can be individual activities that you track. And then on your timeline, you can see, a nice view of that for each customer. So that's kind of how we bring it together. Now, is it the system of record? No, the actual systems that the data is getting put into is the system of record, but the downstream system, the Customer Insights, is the view, that single view on top of that data then. And you can refresh that periodically throughout the day or month or week or however often you feel refreshing that data needs to happen.
So you talked about different activities coming from marketing, from from people making calls, etc. What about activities that, let's say, might come from their engagement on a website? They might be anonymous even at that point. Or what about if you've got an app inside your organization, that is available to the public, and there's engagement through the app, and you want to understand the signal data coming from that? Is that all included?
Yeah, that's a great question. So recently, back in October of 2020, with our major update, we kind of did a slight rebranding or renaming, depending on how you want to look at it, of Customer Insights. So Customer Insights was a product that we had, and then we also had in kind of the development stage and was just about ready to come out what we call Product Insights.
Yeah.
And I think you had I think you had Jude on quite a
Mm-hmm,
while
mm-hmm.
ago talking about product insights when it was first getting started. So what we did at that time is we kind of rejiggered, or whatever you want to call it, product insights from what it was kind of shaping up to be into something slightly different that we thought it was more in demand and more in line with where we want to go. And we took that and we rebranded it as Engagement Insights.
Mm-hmm.
And then we took what was Customer Insights and we kind of rebranded it as Audience Insights. And we took the two and we put them into what we call Customer Insights now. So Customer Insights is kind of the overall product. And then we have two feature sets, if you want to call them that, or two functionalities. Audience Insights, which gives you the information about your audience. And then Engagement Insights, to get to the question you asked, is a product that'll be releasing in October. It's currently available in preview. And so anybody that logs into their Customer Insights environment will see two little buttons in the tab on the far left side of their screen. One is Audience Insights and one is Engagement. Today, Engagement Insights is that web piece. So it's the ability to insert just a small little bit of JavaScript into your website and then get you all that tracking information. So the page visits, all the information about the browsers and things that they're using to connect, where they were referred to your site from, and all that sort of fun stuff is in that tool. So think of products like Google Analytics and some of those other web-based analytics packages. That's what you're getting right now out of Engagement Insights. Now, down the road, as we get closer to release and after, we'll be adding more functionality, particularly for mobile applications. So the ability to add some code into your mobile app and get that same sort of engagement data. And then also IoT devices. So being able to track IoT device engagement in the Engagement Insights product as well.
Mm-hmm. So in that scenario, let's say I had a fridge that was internet aware, let's say, and there was a part failing on it. The manufacturer could trace that right through to me and potentially, have that part ready on order, etc., for the fix of the device. And it would still be part of my full customer journey as owning that device. That entire picture would come together. Is that the case?
Exactly. Yeah. So, yep. So you log into the website, you register your product. So now they have the serial number attached to you or whatever it is that they use for tracking. And that goes into the system. It's attached to your customer profile. So when the IoT device is pushing data into the cloud and that gets pulled into Engagement Insights, they can now attach that in Audience Insights with your profile and then be able to do reporting. And of course, all of this is backed by a very large and robust API that allows you to build whatever you want, essentially, using that API. So you could build, into your own workflows, into your own applications, or you could use any of the Power Platforms, so Power BI or Power Apps, and use the connectors that we provide, which are sitting on top of those APIs as well, to get that stuff into your Power BI dashboard or into your Power App.
Incredible. I mean, just from an R&D perspective for these type of organizations, the information that they would get and then, mapping that with the profile of the customer is going to allow some, unique developments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, and that's we're just now starting to see some of that ideation happening with some of our partners on what exactly they're going to be able to build, and obviously early days today as we're in preview for Engagement Insights, but as we get closer to release and more of that functionality that people are looking for gets put into the product, then it just opens up so many more opportunities for us to do some of that unique stuff.
So tell me a bit about the architecture of Customer Insights. It ultimately sits in Azure, I take it, but tell me a bit about the for those that are listening that are on the technical side and they want to understand, what's the underlying technologies that are all being brought together in the SaaS solution. What does that look like from your point of view?
Yeah, sure. So from an architecture standpoint, yes, it's all runs on Azure. So it's actually not, I would say, not a new product. It really came out of some internal things that we had built for like Microsoft Retail and for Xbox and some of these large organizations within the company that needed this sort of ability. We had built some things, and then that turned into this product called Customer Insights. But it sits in Azure. It's a lot of what you would expect. It uses a lot of the firewalls and the networking capabilities in Azure. We use Azure Cosmos DB for doing some of our storage. We use Azure Data Lake as our primary data store within Customer Insights. We are now branching into Dataverse. So actually, as of today, with this recording, I think it just came out yesterday, that we expanded. When you create a trial, one of the new things that you'll see in Customer Insights is that you get a Dataverse automatically provisioned for you, which allows us now to expand our capabilities. So by having the Dataverse, we have the ability to use Power Platform data flow connectors instead of just the standard Power Query connectors. And that gives us on-premise access now. So a lot of people have been asking since day one, really, when can I get access to my on-premise databases and that sort of stuff. So now we have that. So out of the box with trials, any new trials you create, and then as you are setting up new production environments, you can attach it to your own Dataverse or have a new one created. And any existing, there is the ability to go back and attach it to a Dataverse there and have that capability as well. But so that's something that we do there. We use Azure Search. We use, and I'm drawing a blank. It is, I got to pull up my slides.
That's all right. Yeah. You mentioned, as in just while looking for that, the Dataverse now, been fully provisioned. Does that mean also that people can rapidly build apps off the data that they would have in Customer Insights?
Yeah, that's where we're going. So today, what you could do is you can use the APIs, as I mentioned. You can use our connectors. In Dynamics, we have what we call the customer card add-in, which gives you the ability to expose some of the data from Customer Insights in your model-driven application. But yeah, where we're going is if down the road we're able to say, no, instead of an Azure Data Lake, let's use Azure Dataverse as our primary data store, which is kind of where we're going with this, is then all the stuff that Customer Insights creates, all these entities that are created when you're doing the ingestion and when you're doing the unification and creating activities and measures and all these things, they all create a table under the covers of data. So that data now would actually live in the Dataverse along with all of your, say, Dynamics marketing or dynamic sales or whatever it is, data. So it would just be another entity that you can reference. So yeah, it'd be real easy to integrate some of those things.
Awesome. Tell me about machine learning and AI. How does that feed into the Customer Insight story?
Yeah. So we have a number of models that we are creating and are shipping as part of the product. So when we first released, we really didn't have any models for you. You had to go out into Azure, you had to build your own model and set it up as a web service endpoint in Azure, and then go back into Customer Insights and consume it. So you would provide the data and it would give you your score back. And then you could use that in your reporting and such. In the last roughly 6 months or so, we've started to put out a number of machine learning models in the box. So we have like customer lifetime value, we have high risk for churn, and some of those coming now in the product to make it easier. So you don't have to have a data scientist or somebody that knows how to go into Azure and create these models. You can just point it at our out-of-box models, give us the fields of data that we need for it to run successfully, and then you get the results of that back without having to know how to do all that.
So if organizations have already built models themselves, can they bring those to the platform and ingest those?
Sure. So today you could, if they run in Azure, Today you could. So Azure Machine Learning Workbench, you could go out there and Machine Learning Studio, go out and deploy your model and then consume it from customer insights. In the future, we're actually hoping to be able to expand that to models that are hosted outside of Azure. So whether that's in the Google Cloud or AWS or wherever, if you have a compatible model system that we can push data out to and then get it back, then we're hoping to be able to enable that for everybody.
Excellent, excellent. You mentioned connectors before, and that's, one of the advantages of Customer Insights is that there's an array of connectors, and customers can tap into their data sets using these connectors. What are the main ones that you're seeing used out there? Are there gaps? Are there additional connectors that kind of need to be developed out for various use cases? Give us a bit more detail around the connection landscape.
Sure. So there's quite a few connectors available. I forget how many in the Power Platform we have, some like 450
400
or something like that. Yeah. So, that gives you an idea. There's connectors for a lot of different things. Are there gaps? Sure. There's going to be gaps in areas where people are going to want to bring in data from a product that maybe we don't have or a connector for, or maybe the connector that we do have isn't maybe robust enough. Maybe it, I know initially there was a lot of requests around like Google Analytics. And while we didn't have a connector in the Power Query connectors, we did have them available in the Power Platform connectors that we had. So you could go into, as a workaround, sometimes you can go into Power BI or Power Apps and use that connector to create the connection to the data source. And then those have essentially a SQL like a connection string and stuff that it creates that you could copy. And then we have a generic blank connector in Customer Insights where you can just go in and paste it in and everything works. But we also have a number of generic ones. So if you can get the data in some sort of a typical format like a JSON or a CSV file or something, or you can front end the data with like a web endpoint, RESTful endpoint, we have generic connectors to be able to then connect to that and get the data. So pretty much anything we can get to, as long as we can somehow get the data into one of these generic formats if we don't have a dedicated connector. You asked about like common ones that are what we're seeing. I would say, one of the obvious one is any of the Microsoft properties. So Azure Data Lake or Blob Storage or something like that, SharePoint and those sorts of things we see a lot. And then, the big clouds, right? So Amazon, we see a lot of people that have stuff in Amazon that are trying to get, out of Redshift and some of these other things into Customer Insights. And then you have the outliers, right? The homegrown systems where it's sitting in a SQL database or it's in some system that we don't have a connector for and we need to figure out how to get that out. And usually in many of those cases, the route that we see people go for a few different reasons is kind of using something like an Azure Data Factory tool to get the data from wherever it is into an Azure Data Lake. And that gives a few benefits. It puts it into the common data model format in the data lake, which makes it much faster to access, more usable across many different products, not just Customer Insights. And then you can do pre-processing before you even get it into Customer Insights. So you save some of that time that you might have to do in Customer Insights to massage the data into what you want it to look like.
Nice. What about data enrichment? I know that, Microsoft has a range of, enrichment assets from the Microsoft Graph. There's been a lot of requests around third-party data enrichment. What's the landscape looking like there?
Sure. You mentioned Microsoft Graph. We got that. We do have some other enrichment sources as well. So, for instance, you can get location enrichment from here. Many people are familiar with that company and the work that they've done. We also have some enrichment from Experian as another option there, and then we have some generic capabilities. So, right now we look at the ability to enrich from SFTP as kind of our generic way to get data in. So if you're not getting company data from LeadSpace, Experian for the B2C play, and here, then as long as you can get the data into an SFTP location in like a CSV format, then we can use it to enrich the data. So we have this generic SFTP connector or an enrichment connector that allows us to go out, hit the file, and import it, and do the enrichment of the profile with that data.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, when you think of customer insights, you commonly think of customers and therefore a B2C type model.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What are you seeing around B2B demand where, let's say it's a car manufacturer and they've got a range of distributors or something like that they're engaging with. So they're not really selling to end customers, they're selling to other businesses. Is there a fit with customer insights in that scenario?
Yeah, definitely. And I'd say that's probably the biggest area that we're seeing interest in. It's just compounding every month of how many requests I get from our sales teams asking for B2B information. And so today you can do kind of a lightweight, I'll call it B2B. So you can ingest account information into customer insights, and you can unify the accounts and get the same thing you get with B2C. It's just instead of a customer, it's an account. But what you don't get is like the hierarchy capability. So in a B2C scenario, that's would be referred to commonly as householding. All right, you have people, and those people are part of a household. In the B2B space, what people are looking for is that account to an end contact sort of thing, right? Or a company that owns many companies, and then that company has maybe other companies, and then so there's that hierarchy capability. And so what I would say is that is probably one of the, if not one of the biggest asks that we have today, and it is the biggest feature, the biggest set of features going into our update for October of this year. So we actually just had a call internally this morning where we talked through what's coming or showed a lot of the features that we've mocked up and are planning for the October release to our internal staff so that they're kind of aware of what's coming as they're talking to people. But yeah, October is going to be a big focus on the B2B space. So adding in all those things that we just talked about, like hierarchies. And you can imagine it's not we just support bringing in data and somehow creating a hierarchy. There's a lot that goes into that. So if you have data in a hierarchy, you'll be able to bring it in, configure the hierarchy within that data in the data set and customer insights. But then that translates into all the other pieces of customer insights. When you go and you look at your customers on the customers page in customer insights, there will be some filtering to be able to say, I want to see the accounts, or I want to see the contacts, or I want to see everybody, or I want to see, there's different views that you'll be able to pick, as well as then the data is going to look different depending on what type of profile it is. Is it an account? Is it a customer or a contact? Is it an account contact? So there's a lot of different things going into that that we'll be bringing out this fall.
So then how would you handle the scenario where the company does want to do B2B, but they also want to do B2C? In other words, they want to look all the way through that distribution train, maybe out to the customer as well. In that scenario, is it a case of just spinning up two different instances of customer insights and then merging them?
Yeah, you could do that. It depends, I think, on how your data is set up. If the customer is part of that overall hierarchy, then you could build that all together. And I think even some of that is stuff that's still being fleshed out by the engineering team as to how their feedback that they've got from some of the customers they've worked with who are interested in the space, and the user testing and things that they're doing with their mock-ups and all the stuff that goes into building a product is being still kind of flushed out how it's going to work entirely in the end, especially for that kind of those scenarios. But no, it's definitely been asked about. And today, yeah, you would have to have two environments. You would have your B2B and then a B2C. Yeah, definitely as we move forward into the space and we provide hierarchy capability, you could see the ability to say, well, okay, I have a company and it has locations, and each location has salespeople maybe, but then they also have customers and be able to attach and be able to drill down. Yep.
Nice. What about PubSec and NGOs? Are you seeing adoption by those type of organizations that, for a long time, like in the CRM space, we saw, hey, they're not customers, but they're citizens, or, and they would still use the tooling in that way. Are you seeing it in PubSec as well?
Yeah, we are. We're seeing it education and PubSec both, as well as other sectors. But yeah, I worked with a partner who did a nonprofit implementation for. Basically, the scenario is the nonprofit works with customers who are constituents in this case, across all the utilities and all the services that are offered by the public space, the government, to their end customers, the constituents. So it's definitely can be, I would say, even more work up front. From what we've seen, because you do have some of these odd cases, right, where that you might not see as much in the business space, where you have a customer might call for what's a good one? Take electricity. So you might have 4 different people, maybe living in the same house. Each calling in. So you end up with these scenarios of many people being associated with an account, and when you start talking about like householding and stuff like that, then you start getting into, well, when is somebody part of the same household or not, and you might have many different phone numbers for the same one, and you have to somehow bring those together. So the data aspects to that, the upfront work of cleaning up of data or determining how you're going to kind of generate that unique profile, I think is a unique problem in that space because of some of the things that they deal with in the nonprofits and in the government space, public sector, compared to what we see in business, where there's usually a little bit more control over the data, although you definitely still run into data issues.
Interesting. So to wrap up with, I'd like to touch on Azure Synapse Analytics and where that sits in the customer insights landscape, because, when I look at Azure Synapse Analytics, there's the ability to really build everything that we've talked about in customer insights using that tooling in Azure. How do you have conversations around, well, first of all, actually, just for tell us about Azure Synapse. What is it from your point of view?
Sure. So, not an uncommon thing that we hear when we're talking with customers about customer insights. And so, Azure Synapse is really it's enterprise analytics. It's an enterprise analytics service, but it's really targeted at big data systems and large scale data issues or data scenarios. So it is built off of the best of SQL and enterprise data warehousing, Spark. So that was the piece in the architecture that was getting at me that I couldn't remember. HD Insights and Spark. So it uses Spark for that big data and pipelines and things like that to be able to get the data into the system in a way that you'd like. So how do they play together? Could you, and this is a common question we get as well, can't I just build this, or I've already got something similar to this? Sure, you definitely could use something like Azure Synapse as your data warehouse, which coincidentally is backed by Azure Data Lake as its data store. But when you start looking at it, it's really a cost-benefit analysis, right, of purchasing versus building. So could you purchase Azure Synapse with the Azure Data Lake and all the things that go into it, and build yourself what Customer Insights does? Some sort of a system that you get the data into that data lake somehow. You then have some processes that go through and unify all those tables and create a single table of your customers, and then use the Synapse side of it, the Spark and that sort of stuff, to create the analytics. Sure, you could do it. You'd have to have your own data scientists. You'd have to have people that understand how to do the data warehousing and all that, and some smart people to write some things that go off and figure out how to determine when 2 records or 20 records or 100 records across 50 or 60 or 70 different tables are the same person or aren't. So while you could build it, I think that's where Customer Insights brings the value, is we've done that work for you. Very easily, a business person, not even a data scientist, but a business person can go into Customer Insights when the data's in there and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we determine this KPI, and build those without having to get super deep in SQL or HD Spark SQL and all that sort of stuff. And provide that to you. And, we're going to continue to maintain it. So we're going to continue to update it like we've done for the last 18 months with new machine learning models that you can use, or new functionality when it comes to creating segments and creating measures and all that sort of stuff. Now, how they work together is really interesting, because it is truly a better together story. Is Azure's Synapse really, like I said, is geared at the large scale, big data warehousing analytics issues. So what we see is that where they work great together is you bring in the data that you need for the customer insight side of it. And that might be only 6 months, a year, 2, 3 years, maybe longer, of data that you want to use to create insights on your current customer base, right? And help drive, business decisions today. Now, you still have lots of other data that isn't related to customers that you need to do analysis on. You might have shipping information, manufacturing information, other types of information, or you might have customer data that goes back 20, 30, 40 years. And you might want to do some analysis on that longer term data as well that doesn't really apply to Customer Insights. Customer Insights is today, what are all the customers that I've been working with in the last year? Who are my high value customers that I want to go attack today? Or who are my at risk for churn customers? I don't care about customers that haven't worked with me in 2 years. I care about the people that are working with me now, and how do I keep them working with me? But all that data is still helpful to be able to do some analysis, and that's where Azure Synapse comes in. So being able to then use Azure Synapse to do the analysis on the larger scale data, but you can incorporate the stuff that's coming out of Customer Insights. So you can utilize the fact that Customer Insights has created that single view of the customer to bring that in and have that data, or the segments that it's created could be useful in your Azure Synapse to be able to use those segments to segment out the customers and do further analysis using the other data sets on those customers. So there's definitely kind of a better together story there, where they're both using that same data store and putting stuff out there and being able to use it.
I like it. It's definitely an interesting space to watch, and we'll make sure that we put in the show notes the various resources you've referred to. Any other kind of resources that you feel that people should go out, take a look at now?
Yeah, there's a few. So I mentioned the AKA MSCI partner, and that's great for partners. We do have a YouTube channel out there with some YouTube on it. That's just aka.ms/CITV. I do a series of videos. I work with the PMs from the team, and as new features are getting released, when they're either features that people have been looking for or that I think are going to be interesting to folks, or just features that I think are complex to figure out or get set up, I do a series called CI in Under 5. You can find that at that YouTube link, or you can go right to the playlist, which is just aka.ms/CI Under 5. And they're all, I try to make them all less than 5 minutes. There's a few that go longer, just the content didn't quite fit in 5 minutes, but I try to make a very bite-sized, consumable, single topic. Here's how you do X, here's how you do Y. I try and do as many of those as I can. Those would be the big ones. Obviously, our documentation site is another big one. We have a lot of great docs. We're actually in the process right now of getting feedback on our doc site so we can update those and make them more usable and have the right information out there for folks. But those would be the big ones: the two channels, the customer partner site for partners, and then the documentation.
I like it. Okay, let's wrap up with some quick fire questions.
Sure.
You ready?
Yep.
You know these are random.
Yes.
If you could arm wrestle one historic figure, who would you choose and why?
Oh, one historic figure. I would say Bobby Jones, just because, he's one of the best amateur golfers, if not the best amateur golfer ever. I think that'd be fun.
I like it. What's your love language?
My love language. I don't know if what would that be? What's a love language?
Well, it's a big American thing. Do you like getting gifts? Do you like getting words of encouragement? Do you like spending time?
Okay. Yeah. It's been a while since wow.
It is random.
Yeah, no. No, I mean, I like giving gifts and
cool.
stuff. Yeah.
That's very cool. Who are the 3 people you want on your team in a zombie apocalypse?
In a zombie apocalypse on my team, oh boy, man. Well, you'd have to have Rambo.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to have Arnold, the Terminator.
I like it.
And Doc Brown, just because.
Nice. Would you rather have no arms and no legs? Why?
Which one would I rather have?
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I would say, I'd have to say no legs, I think, because I could still at least do things like I could still play golf from a wheelchair. Yep. I could still do a lot of the things that I like to do. If I didn't have arms, that'd be kind of tough.
Yeah, I'd agree. When you die, what do you want to be remembered for?
What do I remember? Oh boy. Just being very helpful, being very generous, very, very willing to help others, I think.
That's good. And final question, what's your pet peeve?
My pet, this is a good one. So I would say the one pet peeve that I really, I have a few, but the biggest one I would say is when people are drinking hot beverages and they slurp it rather than drink it because it's too hot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you got somebody sitting down the row from you and they're just slurping it. It's just I don't like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that. I was brought up in a home that was not tolerated, so it creates a level of intolerance. John, it's been so good to have you on the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's been a great time answering questions and just chatting.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, also known as the NZ365 Guy. If there's a Microsoft guest you'd like to see on the show, please message me via LinkedIn. Please like and subscribe in your favorite podcast player. And feel free to leave a review at nz365guy.com/review. Otherwise, stay safe out there and see you next time.